So now let's talk about how the narcissist self-destructs through their lack of empathy. Usually we think of this as something that is hurtful to us, right? Because they don't have empathy, they don't really care about how their actions affect others. And so it kind of paints the picture that they can hurt other people and just ride off into the sunset. But that's not exactly true. You see, we really need emotional empathy in order to create strong bonds with other people. But we know narcissists are severely lacking in this much needed life skill. And what's more, they don't really see a need for it. So if you look at the most malignant of narcissists, you might find them bragging about what little empathy they have. They might even say something like, empathy is for the weak. But if you've loved and been loved, you know that they're not winning. They may win with material things and smear campaigns, but ultimately they don't know true happiness. And when you look further down the scale of narcissism, you'll find narcissists who build their lives around reaching for that love and affection. But then you can see how they clearly sabotage it every time. See, what's interesting is that narcissists are pretty good at finding decent people to surround themselves with. And without the entitlement, self-importance, and abuse, this would be a recipe for very many successful relationships. But we know that's not the case. You see, they usually have the right people around them to make things work. They're just lacking the right connector, which is empathy. And here's a comment that's a good example of a lack of empathy in action. When I was on crutches for a broken ankle, he thought it was funny watching me use my crutch to lower the toilet seat. It was beneath him to lower a toilet seat. He even said it. So, wow, this commenter really drives home a crucial point that we often miss in these relationships. When it comes to safety, so often we think of physical safety. But if you expand that definition to emotional safety, you might realize exactly how dangerous it is to stay with a narcissist. Because at a bare minimum, you should feel safe in any relationship. And on the topic of empathy, another commenter says, it's heartbreaking. They make you fall for them and then withdraw. And you see how cold and unfeeling they really are, just walking black holes. So we tend to associate empathy with human nature. And so when you see it's absent in someone, it does seem kind of like a black hole, like there just isn't any substance there. All right, now let's talk about the narcissist's web of lies. And first, let's acknowledge that some narcissists are better at lying than others. And those who aren't as good, they still lie, but they rely more heavily on sleight of hand and lies of omission. Still, the truth eventually comes out, at least most of the time. Someone has to be incredibly good at lying to go through life without facing any consequences. So their lies usually end up hurting them eventually, even if you don't see it. So narcissists may lose jobs or get into legal trouble, and they definitely burn bridges with people who once trusted them. And this may seem like par for the course for a narcissist, and it is, but it isn't a net win. Yes, they may get away with some of it, but imagine always having to look over your shoulder or cover your tracks. And also imagine always having to jump from job to job, or person to person, or even city to city to outrun your lies. It doesn't seem like a good life to me. How about you? And here's a comment that shows how the words narcissism and lying are almost synonyms. That's how I found out what was wrong with my narcissist husband. He was lying to me. I knew he was lying and he knew he was lying, and he still kept doing it. I looked up pathological lying and up pops narcissism. It all fell into place. I find it fascinating how we all tend to follow different paths to the same place.